Why is a wireless transmitter system such a good idea for your camera setup? Hello, my name is Jonathan Palfrey. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Please like and subscribe as always, as it massively helps me out. Today we are looking at the Accsoon Cineview Quad. Now this is a sponsored video by Accsoon and this is a paid product showcase. Before we start talking about the Cineview, why would you want to consider a wireless transmitter system for your camera setup? What are the advantages to having one over just using, say, a cabled HDMI plug? The number one reason why you want to consider a wireless setup is really to get the client and anyone else out of the way of the camera. So by having a wireless setup, you can set up a monitor further away from the camera so you can keep the client, the director, the producer, whoever, away from where you actually are shooting. It's also useful so that other people on the crew can actually have their own feed as well. And that's something that we'll be talking about with the Cineview and about how you can transmit to multiple devices. The second reason would be safety, and it's a boring subject that no one really ever talks about on YouTube, but health and safety is a really important part of running a video production business. And well, a wireless setup just means that you don't have cables lying around everywhere, which does create a risk of someone actually tripping. So there's a couple of reasons why you might want a wireless setup, and that is where the Accsoon Cineview Quad actually comes in. So the Cineview Quad is very much designed for a professional production environment. It's got an all aluminium metal body design, so there's no concerns about it breaking on set. It is really compact as well, which is quite unique for wireless transmitters, especially with the functions this has. Even with the antennas, they neatly fold away so that when you're storing it, there's no risk of them being damaged. With a lot of other wireless transmitters, you actually have to screw in the antennas every single time you turn up on the set. So this is a real time saver over those other options. Also, because of that design, there's no need for a fan in the transmitter or the receiver either. That's ideal if you're working in a small environment where noise might be an issue. You may get fan noise coming off a device and you don't want that being picked up on a microphone. On the bottom there is a standard 1/4-20 mount with two ARRI locking pins. On the front there is a bright OLED screen which gives you all the information that you need to know about the transmissions. On the side you have your HDMI and SDI ports, so it supports both these type of connections, which is really important in professional environments. SDI is still used and is still the preferred choice over HDMI where possible. Now a really cool additional thing I've discovered, which isn't mentioned in any of Accsoon's promotional material, is actually can cross-convert from HDMI to SDI and SDI to HDMI. So it means if you have an SDI camera such as an FS7, you can cross-convert that to a HDMI monitor at the other end. On the other side you have your DC input and it accepts a wide range of voltages as you'd expect, so you can plug this into a V-Lock battery for example. And you also have a dial so you can select which channel you want your transmitter and receiver to work on. Finally on the back you have your NPF battery plate, so you can just use your standard Sony batteries to power this device. Speaking of battery life, it does actually last quite a long time. I was using this system on a shoot the other day where we had it going for about 4 or 5 hours. And in that time with an NPF 970 battery, it only had used a quarter of the battery life. This thing could definitely go all day on one battery. A unique feature of the Cineview Quad is the fact that it uses both 5 GHz and 2.4 GHz together at the same time. Most transmitters will use one or the other. They'll either use 2.4 GHz or they'll use 5 GHz. And there are pluses and minuses to using either one of those. Receivers with only 5 GHz often are quite limited in terms of their range. When it comes to 2.4 GHz, that will go quite a bit further, but unfortunately it's quite busy. There's a lot of things that use 2.4 GHz. The Cineview Quad receiver combines the two streams from both frequencies, greatly improving the stability and the anti-interference. The transmitter can take up to a 1080 60p signal and it uses H.264 to compress. Despite the compression, it has very low latency, less than 60 milliseconds. Not only can you transmit to the receiver, you can also transmit to mobile devices as well at the same time. Up to 4 devices can be used simultaneously. This means you could have your receiver on a client monitor, outputting a signal via HDMI, while at the same time having the director on an iPad or the makeup artist watching on an iPhone, and it just gives you so many flexible options, being able to transmit the signal all to these different places at the same time just using one transmitter. When it comes to the Accsoon Go app as well, it has everything you would want to see on there like you get on a professional monitor. In fact, it has a few extra features as well, such as overlays that you can import from your phone. Not only that, you can also record the signal onto your phone And if you really want to, you can even live stream the image straight to the web. This could be a great solution if you need someone to watch remotely. If they can't be there on the day on set, then they could just send the signal to a mobile phone, which then could be transmitted to them via the internet. Finally, another cool feature is the fact it actually works in split screen mode on the iPad, which means you can have your notes up at the same time as seeing the picture on the screen. I could see this being really useful for producers where they want to maybe tick off the shots that are being produced, or they might have some questions or notes that they need to have up at the same time seeing the image that's coming through the camera. So you might be thinking, John, that sounds great, but what kind of range can you get from this transmitter? Well, it has up to 500 feet or 150 meters. That is the claimed range that Accsoon say that this transmitter can do. So I thought, why not go to a field and actually test that out? As you can see, I found this quite boring field near where I live, and quite impressively, the range was no problem whatsoever. So where that tree line was, that was actually exactly 150 meters. And I found that it could definitely do that. There was no problem whatsoever. The transmitter carried on working all the way there. Now, if you do block it with your body a lot, then there are risks that the transmission can go. But if there's direct line of sight with no one blocking it, then there is no issues getting the 150 meters or 500 meter claimed range. Now, of course, if you're indoors, you can have things like walls and doors, things that are going to actually block the signal and going to reduce that range. However, I actually used it on a shoot. I was using it on a shoot where the client needed to send an image from a kitchen through to another room where guests were actually going to be watching the chefs make some meals. And it was a really cool way of using this device actually. It was the first time I had to really use it in a professional environment, and it worked really well. We had the transmitter on the top of the camera, and then the receiver had to go into a cupboard plugged into HDMI, which then went out to all the TVs. There was also a whole room and a double set of doors going between the kitchen and the space that the receiver was in. This was not an ideal setup. Ideally, I would want the transmitter out of that cupboard, away from all those wires and all that kind of things that could block the signals. A lot of metal going on in there, and it certainly was pretty much the worst conditions you could expect for a receiver to sit in. So who is the Cineview Quad for? Well, I think it's anyone that needs a compact wireless transmitter system, an all-in-one solution that can really tick a lot of boxes. That's something that's quite unique about the Cineview Quad over other solutions that are out there. The fact it can reliably transmit a HDMI or SDI feed is really key for professional shoots. Not only that, but the fact you can also use it with an app and have it on multiple devices at the same time as going to receiver just means it's one less device you need to have in your kit bag. Because of its compact size, I can see this being really useful on a director's monitor setup. You know, having this attached on the back is just not going to take up any space whatsoever. The other area where I think the Cineview Quad could be great for is live events. If you're filming sport, for example, or a music event, and be able to transmit a wireless signal is really useful in so many scenarios. I used to do a lot of that where I used to have to live transmit a camera feed to a big screen via Vision Mixer. Also, you often find that those Vision Mixers are SDI based, which means if you're taking a HDMI camera, say as the FX3 for example, you need a way of converting that signal to SDI before you can get into the Vision Mixer. With the Cineview Quad, you can literally just take an SDI feed out of the receiver straight into the Vision Mixer, despite the fact that there's a HDMI feed coming in at the other end on the transmitter. I think for small production companies that are doing various different jobs all the time, whether it's one day they're doing a live event, the next day they're doing a corporate job, then suddenly they're doing a small commercial or a music video, having technology and devices that can kind of cover a wide range of use cases like that, so you can pick and choose what you need all the time without needing to own large amounts of equipment that's dedicated for certain jobs, is ideal. It makes such a big difference. It saves you a huge amount of money, if nothing else. And that I think is where the Cineview Quad is so special. The fact at one end it can just be used as a transmitter to mobile devices is great, but at the other end you could be transmitting it to a SDI feed on a big screen. The fact you have such a wide range of use cases from all one device makes it a really versatile piece of equipment. I hope you have found this video useful. If you have, please like and subscribe as it massively helps me out. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.